In our previous video, we understood about configuring VLANs in the FortiGate firewall. All right. So I have just added, one more server to the existing topology. Like in the previous video, we had only this LAN zone, right, where we have configured two servers. Just to differentiate the topology, just to change the icon of this Linux Tiny Core to a PC. All right. So going forward, let it be a PC. But still, this the configuration seems to be the same. Okay, we have not changed the IP address that we used in our previous video. All right. So this is a LAN zone, and in top of that, now we have added one more server, and let's consider that this is a DMZ zone. All right. Uh, so let's in this video, let's configure a simple firewall policy to see how a traffic flows through the firewall and how does it work. Okay, how to configure a simple firewall policy to allow a traffic. All right. So in order to achieve that, as I said last time, we have this zone. Maybe we are not going to configure a zone in this video. At last we'll find the advantage of the limitations of going with normal rules and the advantages of going with the zones. Okay, so in the next video we'll be learning about zones, but in this video we'll be going with the simple firewall rule only. All right. So as said, in the previous video itself, we have two VLANs created, like VLAN 10 and VLAN 20. So this video, we just added one server. We are going to give this IP address to this server and this IP address to port 3. Okay. Last time we have not given IP address on the interface. Instead, we created a VLAN and assigned an IP address. Thus, we have only one IP. So this time we are going to configure that in the this interface. Then we are going to create one firewall policy to allow a transaction or communication from this, and also we can create one more uh, policy to allow a communication from DMZ to the this server. All right, fine, let's get started. So first let me configure this DMZ server with the IP address. I think it's already configured. Yeah. So the DMZ server is having the IP address 192.168.50.100. Okay, so if in case you don't know how to configure it, anyway, we saw that in the previous video. I'll just recall it. Okay, so there is an option like as soon as you power on this machine, you'll be seeing an option like control panel. All right, just click it, and here you'll be seeing an option network. Select it, and by default, the DHCP is disabled. You can just select here, and you can assign the IP address. Like in my case, I want this machine to have 192.168.50.100. All right. So I configured the IP here, and it is a /24 network. So let it be 25.225.225.0. It would automatically take the broadcast as well as the gateway. One small changes, like I just want to change the the gateway as per my topology. So as per my topology, the gateway is like 192.168.50.1. All right, so I just need to configure 192.168.50.1 instead of 254. All right, so the gateway is configured. I just selected apply and exit. That's it. So the IP address should be configured now. Let me validate it once again. Let me enlarge it. You can use the command ifconfig to check it. So when I use the command ifconfig, I could see the device is having the IP address 192.168.50.100 as per the lab topology. All right. So we have already discussed this. Like in order, this Linux Tiny Core has a feature like whenever a device is powered off, then it would lose the IP address it's configured, right? So in order to, as we are going to use the same topology for the upcoming video, and we are going to enlarge this topology, I don't want this IP to be released by the device, right? So whenever this device is powered on, it should use the same IP. So I'm just giving the command file tool dot sh space dash b. So this is the command. So once you give the command file tool dot sh space dash b, then this IP address information would get saved here. All right. Fine. So we have configured the IP address, and we also saved it. Now it's a time to configure the FortiGate firewall. So in the FortiGate firewall, we need to configure IP address in the port number 3. Let me go here, and as you know, for interface configurations, we need to go to network, and interfaces are part of network. So interfaces. So already we have configured port 2, right? The LAN port. So we define the port 2 as the LAN port. So it has the alias name LAN. And we are using port 1 for a management interface, right? So that it's having the management IP address. With this IP address only, we are accessing the device, right? Maybe for a better understanding, what we can do, we can just add alias name here, mgmt management. That's it. And if in case, like if you see here, currently we have taken this IP from a DHCP, and if you want to configure any specific IP, you can just select this manual option and you can do it. Any IP from your management network. All right. So this is how you can configure your IP address for a management interface. That's fine. Okay. See, once we added the alias name, now it's showing along with that. So this would help us to identify the interface, like which interface is responsible for what or to where it is connected, like that. So as per our topology, we have port 3 that is connected to DMZ, right? So I'm just opening port 3, and the first thing, like I would like to add alias name so that uh, whenever I see the port, I would see the name DMZ along with it for my understanding, right? So it also has the role, like if you want to change it anything, you can change it accordingly. But this as per this requirement, port 3 is part of my DMZ. So I'm selecting DMZ. So I need to configure IP, and this is a manual. Like statically, I need to configure this particular IP 192.168.50.1. Okay, that's part of this network. 192.168.50.1, and it's /24. Okay, all right. So now it's using this network, and we're using the first IP, which this is the IP that we have configured as a gateway, right? Means not configured as a gateway. We have declared here that we are going to use this IP as the gateway. All right. So for an administrative access, I just enable HTTP, HTTPS, ping, SSH. Select OK. That's it. Like now, if you try to ping from here to here, we should able to connect. Okay. Execute ping 192.168.50.100. See, now we were able to connect from here to here. However, if you try to connect from here to here, like from this Linux PC that is part of a LAN zone, or I would say VLAN pin this side to this DMZ zone server, it will not connect. Okay, maybe I'll show you here. PC VLAN 10. It has IP. So for now, I'll just show you with the pings, and later going forward, we'll be deploying servers, and we would use different traffics like FTP, web, etc. All right. So if you see here, this PC, like this PC is having an IP 172.168.10.100. So if I try to ping, what's the IP address of a DMZ server? 192.168.50.100. Will it reach? I will not get any response because there is no valid firewall rules here allow a traffic to pass through this side to that side, right? So as you know, whenever a traffic hits a firewall, in order to allow it, it should have a valid rule, right? So when a traffic comes to the firewall, basically it would check the available firewall policies, and if it has any valid firewall policies to allow the traffic to pass through it, only in that situation it would allow, else it will never allow. Okay, so that the packet would get dropped here itself. But at the same time, like if you try to ping from here to this interface, like 172.16.10.1, we will get response because it's just an L2 connectivity, right? 172.16.10.1. See, we're getting a response, right? And again, when you try to ping to 20.1, we will not get any response, right? Fine. If you want to check that, see, we will not get any response because here we are getting a response because that's because of same network. All right, fine. So our objective, like our requirement is here to allow a traffic when the request is coming from this Linux PC towards this DMC server, the firewall should allow the traffic. Okay, so let's go to our firewall. So now, like what we need to do. So when a traffic comes here like this and through port 2 from VLAN 10, I should tell when a traffic comes through port 2 using VLAN 10, allow the traffic to reach to this DMC server through port 3. Okay, so this is what the information that I'm going to feed in the security policy. So based on that, firewall will collect it. All right, fine. Let's just go here. Hmm, so you can define the security policies here. Like there is an option like policy and object. Just select it. So the very first option is firewall policy. Select it. So as soon as you open it, you'll be seeing one implicit role. Okay. So this is like implicit deny. As you know, all the firewall would be having an implicit deny role, right? So that would be available in general at the bottom. So we'll be discussing about everything in detail in the upcoming video. This is just an overview, or it's just a basic understanding about the security policy, or just to see how to configure a basic firewall rules. Okay, so we'll be discussing more in detail in the upcoming videos. So I'll just go ahead. I'll create a new firewall policy with the option create new here. So we need to give any name. Maybe I'll just put like VLAN 10 to DMZ. Okay. So the reason why I am putting VLAN 10 is you cannot create a policy like when a traffic comes from port 2 towards port 3, allow it. The reason being that is, if you remember in the last video, we have not configured any IP address on port 2. Instead, we have created two VLANs and we have given IP address on the VLAN only. And that two VLANs are passing through port 2. So when you have a multiple VLANs, you cannot define on port basis. Okay. So this is what the limitation is. Like when you have a single network, then it's easy to configure this kind of security policy. All right. When you have hundreds of security policies, so or I'm sorry, it's not about hundreds of security policy. Like maybe consider that when you have more than 10 plus VLANs from the same zone, like from the same side, I would say. So that is the place where zone comes into picture. Okay, that's fine. Maybe we'll be discussing about the zones in the next video, but in this video, let's go with the same flow only. So as I said, we cannot directly configure based on the port number because we don't have any IP address for the port. All right. So if you see here, as soon as I click the option here, incoming traffic, here we need to define from where the source is coming or the incoming traffic is coming from. Like in my case, I want to create for VLAN 10, right? Like when I get a traffic from this or when a request is coming from this particular Linux machine towards this guy, allow it. Okay. So it's specific to only this PC. So that I'm just using VLAN 10. Or even if I want to, write a policy for both VLAN 10 and VLAN 20 to reach here to DMZ, at this moment, I cannot do it. Because as I said, I don't have any IP address on port 2. But there is a way to do it. That's what using zone. Okay. So before getting into zone, I just want to show you the limitations if you're not using the zone. Okay. So that. All right. So I'm just using VLAN 10 here, and the outgoing interface is, as I said, it should go to my port 3, nothing but the DMC selected here. And here we need to define which is the source and which is the destination. Okay. So for now, like as we are creating a very simple security policies, I'm not getting deep into it. I'm just going with a high level only, a basic. I'm just selecting all here, and even for destination, I'm just selecting all and scheduled always, service all type of a service, and we'll be discussing about in detail, like we'll be discussing everything in detail in the upcoming videos. This is just an sample. So for now I don't need to have a NAT. We'll be discussing about it later only. and I want to see all sessions. Select OK. All right, now I have created one security policy to allow a traffic, like whenever it's a request is coming from VLAN 10 to DMZ, and I said to allow it always. Okay, its action is set to accept, right? So now what I'll do, I'll just go to this Linux machine. If you remember, last time when I was trying to ping this machine with IP 192.168.50.100, actually it was not happening, right? So I'll just highlight it here for your reference. If you see here, last time when we tried to ping, we didn't get any response, 0% packet loss. However, now if we try to do the same, like 50.100, right? So this is the IP address that we have configured in the server, and this is what we tried earlier. It should reach. See, now we are getting a response. So the reason why we are getting a response now, it's because like when a traffic is coming, the ICMP request is coming now. So as soon as it reaches the firewall, firewall checks whether is there is any valid firewall rule to allow the traffic. So now we have a rule to allow a traffic to port 3. So that's the reason it's allowed now. All right, fine. But at the same time, if you just go here and try to ping from this server to the same DMZ, we will not get any response. As same, if we try to go to this DMZ server and try to initiate a traffic towards this Linux PC, obviously we will not get any response, because when we define a firewall rule, we have given one way, like when a traffic is initiated from this Linux machine towards this DMZ, like from this way, then it is allowed to pass through it. And when the request is sent to the DMZ server, and only at that point of time, the response traffic is allowed to reach him back. But if you're trying to initiate a new traffic from this DMZ server towards this, it will never allow. Because in order to do so, we should have a different firewall rule. Maybe I'll show you now. Like I'll just click this DMZ server. Okay. So if you see here the DMZ server, see this is the DMZ server, right? This machine. And currently we have IP address 192.168.50.100. Okay. If I try to ping 172.16.10.100, like this is the, I'm sorry, this is the IP address of this machine, right? If I try to reach, I will not get any response, because when the request is initiated from this DMZ server, when it comes to the firewall, firewall will check whether do it have any valid firewall rule to allow a traffic when the packet has a source IP as this and destination means towards this. Okay, means basically when the traffic coming from this port, source port, towards this destination port. So we don't have any valid policy for that. Instead, we have a policy to allow only from this side. Like when a request is coming from this side, allow it. So when a request is going, allow, and response to that request, you can allow bidirectional. Okay. So I'm not telling that you should every time you should create for outgoing one and incoming one. No, it's not the case. Like it's generally it's an bidirectional, but when in which direction the traffic is initiated, that matters. Like the existing policy is created from this side to this DMZ, so that when a request is goes this way, it's all allowed, and it's bidirectional. At the same time, when a response is coming for the request, it is allowed. However, if a request is newly initiated, a new request, a new connection is initiated from this server towards this, it will never allow. All right. Fine. And also I'll just show you from here as well, like from server VLAN, this VLAN, this server. Mm, Ping, maybe I'll just show you the IP address first. If config, if you see here, it's having an IP address 172.16.20.100. All right. So if I try to ping 192.168.50.100, it will not reach. Okay, it will get dropped here itself, because when we define a firewall rule, we define only for this particular VLAN 10, maybe not for a specific source IP. We have defined VLAN 10 here, right? If you just check it, see VLAN 10 here, which means that whichever traffic that's coming from VLAN 10, allow it. Maybe if you add one more device, whatever device it is, if you add one more device in VLAN 10, and if a request is sent from that device, it would get allowed. But this device traffic is going as a VLAN 20 because we have configured this interface as an access port to VLAN 20, and you know, that's the reason. So now what we can do, let's create a one more policy to allow communication from this side to this. Or let's do this thing like we already written a policy for when you initiate a traffic from this side to this side, right? So now maybe I'll just create a one more you know, policy to allow a communication from this DMZ server to this specific or this network, VLAN 20 network. Okay, so firewall policy, create new. So this is from DMZ to it's going to VLAN 20. Okay, so by this way, like when a request is coming this towards this, it would allow. But at the same time, when the server is creating a new connection towards this, it's when it's creating a new request or new connection, if it's going like this way, it will not allow. Okay, fine. So incoming traffic, it's a DMZ port, port 3, right? And outgoing interface is again, we should not give port 2, means we should be very careful. Like when you have multiple VLANs to single interface, we should be very careful. We should not define the port. Instead, even if you define the port, it will not work. Okay. If you want to check, you can check it. So the way how we adding a VLAN, right? Instead, you can check with the port number as well. It will not work. Okay. So I have selected for VLAN 20 here. Again, let's put all the source address and destination is all, service all right, accept, and NAT is not required for now, like okay. So now I have created a new policy, like whenever a traffic is coming from DMZ to VLAN 20, then in that case it's set to allow. Right, let me go back here. I should open my DMZ. So even if you see here, right, the traffic is still initiated towards this DMZ, but still we have not received any response because, as I said, when a new request is initiated from this side to this side, it will not respond. However, if a new request is coming from this side to this, then it is allowed, and a response to that request is allowed bidirectionally. Um, server DMZ server, right? So this is what it is. Now what I'll do, I'll just ping 172.16.20.100. So now this time it should work. See, I'm getting a response. From here, I'm able to connect to this server and I'm getting response to it, right? So this is how you can simply, this is an example for a simple firewall policy. But the reason why I want to show you this is like in this situation, we have two VLAN, right? So VLAN 10 and VLAN 20. So maybe in a production, you'll be having a multiple VLANs, right? It depends on your architecture, how big it is. So sometimes it would be some 10 or 15, it depends completely. So in that case, it would be really difficult to manage rules, if you are going in this kind, like for every VLANs. So you should have on the either side also. Okay, from you should mention, maybe in the production you'll be mentioning this particular VLAN as a source to that particular destination, and again from other destination to this particular VLAN, like that. So it would be very difficult to manage a policy, the rules when you're going based on different VLANs or coming from the same side. Okay, so this is the major disadvantage, like it's very difficult to manage. So in order to make it easy, or in order to make this complex process easy, then it comes the zone. Okay, so zone is basically a grouping of multiple thing in one direction, like as one group, I would say. So we'll be discussing about zone in the next video in detail.